More on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. But New York very much is still in chaos. The phones are not working properly, the subway lines are not working properly, and we know that down there near the World Trade Center there are 3 schools.
BBC announced that it came down and why 20 minutes before it did.
Already the World Trade Center shut signs a $3.2 billion 99-year lease for an entire World Trade Center complex 6 weeks before 9/11. Included in the lease is a $3.5 billion insurance policy specifically covering acts of terrorism.
PBS has a documentary called America Rebuilds, in which Larry Silverstein, the landlord of Building 7, explains what happened.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Notice it is not pancaking. Watch the middle cave in. Remember, this building wasn't even hit by an airplane. Steel columns support the whole thing. Okay, house lights up.
How tall was that building?
47 stories. Now this is just one of hundreds of things that make millions of 9/11 truthers around the country suspect the government's story. Most of them believe that Building 7 came down as a result of controlled demolition. And if it did, so did the Twin Towers as well. Now, we don't know. Millions in this country believe this is the smoking gun that proves 9/11 was an inside job. I don't think the case is proven, but the point is, even if they're wrong, even if the Bush administration's official conspiracy theory is essentially correct, you know, the one about 19 errors with hijackers and an old man on a dialysis machine in a cave. If that story is essentially correct, the American people still need to know why our multi-trillion-dollar defense establishment was unable to protect even its own headquarters from an unarmed aircraft. The truth about 9/11 is that after 6 years, we still don't know the truth about 9/11, and we should. The American people deserve the truth, and so do the families of victims. I am therefore appointing a commission to conduct a new and truly independent investigation of 9/11. It will have oversight by a few of you in Congress, by Senator Max Cleland, by Dr. David Wade Griffin of the 9/11 Truth Group, by Karen Breitweiser, Mindy Kleinberg, and the Jersey Girls representing the families of victims, and by Sybil Edmonds and other whistleblowers in the FBI. They will have full subpoena power, able to require sworn public testimony from anyone up to and including me and the former president and vice president. We've had enough so-called testimony behind closed doors with no oaths and no transcripts and no truth. This time, we want the truth. The new commission will examine all the evidence, even that which seems to contradict the official story, and there's plenty of it. And it will have no predetermined conclusions about who the conspirators were. Now, if there are guilty parties still serving in this government, we must root them out. There have been all too many Pearl Harbors, Gulfs of Tonkin, 9/11s, and Reichstag fires. We must make it clear that the truth will out. Never again must we allow this nation to be stampeded into war under false pretenses. Now, speaking of war, the new Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I redefined two basic missions for our armed forces: deterring anyone from attacking the United States with weapons of mass destruction, and defending our shores and borders from foreign invasion. Period. This redefinition of mission will, after a few years of transition, result in a peace dividend of $400 billion per year. In its years in office, the Bush administration doubled the defense budget, but did not deploy a single new system. At the end of the Bush years, there were fewer ships, fewer aircraft, and fewer tanks on duty than under Clinton. Our goal in getting this peace dividend is to transition from a wartime economy to a peacetime economy without a single person joining the ranks of the jobless. Until new contracts come out for renewable energy, non-polluting transportation, and rebuilding our infrastructure, there are to be no layoffs. If we can pay farmers not to grow crops, we can pay engineers not to build weapons. The part of the defense budget which is absolutely inviolable is that part which takes care of our veterans. The VA must be fully funded. The cost of caring for the combat veterans from the Iraq War alone will be in the trillions of dollars over their lifetimes, but it is a cost we must bear. The signature wound of this war is brain trauma, and yet the Bush administration slashed the budget for the Brain Trauma Center by 50%. To create so many thousands of disabled veterans in their wars of aggression and then refuse to take proper care of them was probably the worst sin of the Bush administration. The care of those wounded in action, racked by PTSD, and poisoned by depleted uranium is not a discretionary expenditure to be avoided by delay, denial, and bureaucratic red tape. It is a solemn obligation of this government, and it will be met. Now, in the last half-century, the United States has gone from savior of the civilized world to the most feared and hated nation on earth. With our belligerence, our arrogance, our name-calling, our overwhelming military superiority, our unilateralism, and our troops stationed in 150 different countries, we have driven other nations to develop nuclear weapons in order to deter us from attacking them. We have then used their weapons developments to justify our further belligerence in a never-ending cycle toward disaster. The end result of all this is that despite spending $1.5 billion a day on military power, the American people today are less secure than at any time since the end of the Civil War. Hundreds of millions of dollars for Star Wars weapons, thousands of nuclear weapons, hundreds of thousands of troops, and the expenditure of $14 trillion since World War II have brought our people only more insecurity, massive debt, and the loss of many of the cherished rights enshrined in our Constitution. It's time for the cycle to end. It's time to end the belligerence, bring home our troops, and rejoin the family of nations, and that's exactly what we're going to